Awesome. Hello, everyone. I'm Kimberly McCullough. I'm the Policy Director here at the ACLU of Oregon. For those of you who have not tuned into one of our events or one of our podcasts before, then I'll just let you know a little bit about what I do. I am in charge of our policy work for the state of Oregon. Most of that takes place in Salem in the Oregon legislature, and I advocate for civil liberties and civil rights in the legislature. So meeting with legislators, trying to get them to do the right thing to protect our rights. So before we get started, I just wanted to let you know that if you have questions, you can post them in the comments section of this post. So we'll try to get to some questions at the end. So just wanted to let you know that. So if you think of something, or if something doesn't make sense, or you want to ask a question about it, go for it. Before we get into the rest of the session as well, I just wanted to let you know that I really hope that you'll be able to join us next week. On Thursday, it's March 23rd in Salem, we're going to have our lobby day, and there is still room to join us at the lobby day. So if you're interested, you can get on our website and sign up. And all right, so I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about our legislative session. It's been a really busy session so far. We started in the beginning of February. A session will run until the video back at the beginning of session, and we talked to you about some of our priority bills. So if you weren't able to view that when it happened, you can go ahead and watch that video, and I'm going to try not to talk too much about the things that we talked about before, so feel free to go check out that video. So before we actually talk about the bills that we've been working on this session, I did want to let you know a couple of places that you can go to look for more info, because there's so much going on that I'm just not going to be able to cover it all in this one video. So if you go on our website, we actually have a page that is dedicated to this legislative session. It has information on the webpage about our major priority bills that we're working on. And then we're also posting copies of our written testimony, the testimony that we submit at hearings for bills that we're interested in. So either bills that we support or bills that we oppose. Most of the time I testify live, but I also submit written testimony. So you can check the testimony out on our website. If you want to get really sort of nerdy or really interested and want to be very informed about what's going on, you can also get on the Oregon Legislative Information website. It's OLIS is what people call that. It's oregonlegislature.gov, and when you get on that website, you can actually search for bills that have been introduced this session. You can see what's happening with them. You can watch the hearings, videos of the hearings. You can also read testimony that was submitted, not only by us, but everybody else who submitted testimony. So if you really want to get more information, you can actually go there and see what's happening as it happens. So what have we been up to this session? So far, since the beginning of February, I have testified on 22 separate bills. I'm going to tell you about some of them. 22 is a lot, so we're not going to have time to go through all of them, but I want to hit some of the highlights. So House Bill 2113, that bill has to do with marriage. So we call it the secular marriage bill. So basically in the state of Oregon, the only people who can solemnize a marriage is a judge, a county clerk, or an officiant from a church. And people who don't belong to a church and want to marry somebody, if they're not a clerk or they're not a judge, they can't do that. They can't sign the marriage certificate. They may be able to do something at the ceremony, but they can't actually solemnize the marriage and sign that contract. We think that people who are non-religious and people who belong to secular organizations should have the same rights as people who belong to churches. And so what this bill would do is it would say that secular organizations, like for example, the Center for Inquiry is a secular humanist organization here in Oregon, or they're actually national, but they have chapters here in Oregon, that they can authorize their members to solemnize a marriage. We supported this same bill last session and the session before. Long story of why neither of those bills passed, but we're back at it again and hoping that third time is a charm. And we had a hearing on it. We testified in support of the hearing and got the good news yesterday that it passed out of the committee. So a bill has to have a hearing in a committee, and then it gets passed out of the committee, and then it gets voted on by whatever chamber it's in, so the House or the Senate. And then after it gets passed by the House or the Senate, it goes over to the other chamber, and then it has another hearing in that committee, or in a committee in that chamber, and it passes out of committee and then gets voted on by that chamber, and then it goes to the governor. So we basically have gotten through the first committee, and it's going to get a vote on the floor of the House next week. So we're really excited about that, and hopeful that this bill will pass fully through the entire legislature this time. House Bill 2355 is our end profiling bill. This is a bill that we've been working on with Unite Oregon and a number of other really wonderful community organizations. The point of this bill is to stop profiling by law enforcement. We also have provisions in this bill that would reduce the penalty for possession of controlled substances from a felony to a misdemeanor. We talked about this bill a little bit in our prior webcast. So we had our first hearing in the House Judiciary Committee, and it went really, really well. We had a ton of community members come in and talk about the impact of profiling on their lives and the impact of drug felonization on their communities. It was really, really great, and we're very, very hopeful about the prospects of this bill. We also are really happy that it actually has the support. This is pretty incredible. It has the support of the Oregon Association of Chiefs of Police and also the Oregon Sheriff's Association. So we worked really hard with them for the last 2 years to finally, we started in very, very different places, but we worked really, really hard to come together, and they've come a long, long way and are actually supporting the bill now. So we've actually launched a campaign to thank them and to continue to encourage them to keep supporting the bill. We have that campaign. We have basically a postcard campaign, and you can look and there's going to be a link in the comments that you can go to, and you can actually sign up to send a thank you and give some encouragement to your local sheriff to encourage this policy. So Senate Bill 82, that bill has to do with the use of solitary confinement in our juvenile facilities. We're very, very excited about this bill. Basically what it does is it says that in Oregon Youth Authority facilities, in those juvenile correctional facilities, that they cannot use solitary confinement for punishment. And it's incredibly important that we pass this bill and show the rest of the country that that Oregon can be a leader in stopping solitary. This is something that we need to stop around the country, and we're just really delighted that this bill is making its way through the legislature, and also that it has the support of the Oregon Youth Authority themselves. So we're very, very encouraged and excited about that bill. We testified in support of it in the Senate Judiciary Committee. It passed out of committee, and then it passed the Senate. So that bill is already on the House side. It's pretty early in the session for a bill to have made it over there that quickly. So really excited about it and encouraged about its prospects. Senate Bill 352 is a bill that has to do with searches by law enforcement. So law enforcement, if they want to search you, right, they have to get a warrant or they have to get your consent. And what we know is that law enforcement, they ask for consent to search very frequently, and people don't always know that they have a right to say no. They think that they might get in more trouble if they say no. Law enforcement officer can sometimes be intimidating. Sometimes it doesn't actually sound like they're asking a question. And so what this bill would do is it would require law enforcement to give you a warning, basically to say, you know what, you don't have to consent to a search, and to just say that to you before you actually are searched. It's very similar to what they call the Miranda warning, which is the warning that you have a right to talk to an attorney, and anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Basically, like that type of a thing for a search. That bill was introduced by Senator Frederick, who he introduces a lot of really great bills on issues like this, and we testified in support of that bill in the Senate Judiciary Committee. Senate Bill 496.
Can you say those last two bill numbers again?
Oh, yeah, of course. So the solitary bill was Senate Bill 82.
Okay.
And the bill before that, that profiling bill, was House Bill 2355. And you got the secular marriage one.
Consent searches.
Oh, and the consent searches is Senate Bill 352.
Thanks. Okay.
Yeah. So the next bill is Senate Bill 496. This bill has to do with grand jury recording of grand jury proceedings. I did talk about this bill in our last webcast, so if you want to know a little bit more about it, you can watch that webcast. We testified in support of this bill in the Senate Judiciary Committee, and it was a really great hearing, and we had all sorts of folks testifying about why this is really something that Oregon should catch up with the rest of the country and do. So very hopeful about that bill. Senate Bill 501, Senate Bill 502, and Senate Bill 503, all related to the same thing. They related to the rights of what we call protected persons. So in Oregon, a court can appoint what's called a legal guardian to take care of another person. And that other person they call a protected person. That's usually somebody with a disability or an elderly person. So a guardianship, when a guardian gets appointed for a protected person, it can strip that protected person of many of their fundamental rights. The guardian can decide where the person lives, what they eat, what kind of medical care they get, who their friends are, even if they can get married. It's a really a very, very powerful position that guardian has over the protected person. And because they have so much power over the other person, we believe that the protected person, should have rights, right? They should have rights in the proceedings that appoint the guardian. So we think that they should have a right to an attorney, and the court should be providing adequate oversight to make sure that that person is not being harmed or taken advantage of. And we know that unfortunately that happens sometimes with guardians. So we testified in support of 3 bills that strengthen the rights of protected persons in guardianship proceedings. And those hearings went really, really well as well. And so we are hopeful about them. House Bill 2673. This is a bill that I was very, very excited about. This bill helps transgender people get their vital records, like their birth certificate, get the gender and name change on their vital records much, much easier than they currently can do. So right now in the state of Oregon, if you want to get your gender changed on your birth certificate, you have to go through what can be an expensive and complicated and intimidating legal process, a court proceeding, in order to get that changed. So people have to actually go to a courthouse. They have to if they live in Multnomah County, it's a little bit easier. At least the court created some forms that people can use. But if you're not in Multnomah County, if you're in Washington County or anywhere else in the state, you actually have to get a lawyer to help you draft the forms to be able to file with the court the paperwork in order to be able to get your gender changed. You then have to go into the court and you have to talk to a judge, and you have to tell them about your transition in order to get permission from the court to change your gender. And then they post your name and your address in the courthouse for a month, which I'm sure many of you can imagine for transgender folks who may have experienced discrimination in their lives. That whole entire process, including the posting of your name and address, can be very, very intimidating and scary. And it's also expensive. So basically what this bill does is it creates a very cheap, simple process that doesn't involve the courthouse. It doesn't involve public posting of your name, of what you're doing. It just basically creates a very cheap, streamlined process for getting your gender changed. So we testified in support of this bill. Very excited that it was passed by the House yesterday, and so now it's on its way over to the Senate, and I feel very, very encouraged about the fact that it's made it over to the Senate so quickly. Okay, so House Bill 3391, that's our Reproductive Health Equity Act, and we did talk about that bill in our last in our last webcast. That bill actually had its hearing yesterday, and it went incredibly well. We had very, very moving and passionate stories from individuals talking about their own experiences with the lack of access to reproductive health care. It was really, really moving testimony. There were tears. We also had some really great doctors that talked about the importance of reproductive health care. And it really, really went very well. So we had that hearing yesterday, and we're going to just keep fighting to get that bill passed. So that is the set of bills. Obviously, I worked on 22 different hearings, so I'm not going to talk about all of them, but those are, I think, what the highlights are. So if you have questions, you can ask them. Have we gotten any questions?
Oh, give me 1 second. I'll take a look. Can you tell people a little bit about what it's like to go to Salem for everyone that's going to join us?
Oh, yeah. So for those of you who are joining us for Lobby Day, it's really exciting. I like being down there a lot. It's a fun event to join us for Lobby Day. So basically what you'll do is you'll come down to Salem. We're going to give you a training. So we will talk to you about what you're going to talk to your legislators about. Basically what we're going to do is we're going to have some of our highest priority bills, which are the bills that we talked about last session or our last webcast. And then also there's another bill that we've added, which is the National Popular Vote bill, which is really exciting. That would be basically changing our voting system from the electoral college system to a popular vote system. We think that's super important for our democracy and for the principle of one person, one vote. So basically what we'll do is we will talk about those priority bills that we talked about before and talk to you about sort of what our main messages and our main talking points are on those bills. We'll then talk to you a little bit about how best to talk to your legislator and what to expect in the meetings with your senator and your representative. And we'll then get you guys into groups, and we're going to do some practice. So we will practice, sort of do a dry run of meeting with the legislator. And the main thing that we're going to want you to do is to talk about why the bills that we're working on matter to you. So it's always most powerful if you have a personal story. Legislators really, I think, just like all people, they're moved the most when something has a personal touch, when they understand why you care about it. So that's really what we want you to focus on the most is, why do you care about this? What is it in your life or your experiences that makes you feel like this is an important issue and something that they should do? We'll also have a rally on the Capitol steps, and we have a couple of legislators and different speakers that are going to speak at that rally. And so we're very excited about that. We will also have a couple of seminars that or talks during the day, so you can learn a little bit more about some of our issues. You can also observe the legislature. There's the Senate and the House will both be having what they call floor sessions, which is where they debate bills and vote on them. So you can watch those. If you're interested, you can go to some hearings and take a look at what the different committees are discussing, and watch some people testify on some bills. And we'll also have, I don't know if I said, we'll also have lunch, which is very important, and it'll be a really great experience. So definitely really hope that you guys will join us for that, and really looking forward to lobbying with you. So,
okay, so there's one question.
Okay.
It's about people power though.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so someone's asking.
Hopefully I can answer it.
Yeah. Do you have a list of Oregon cities and counties that fulfill the 9 Freedom Cities rules? And if so, is Corvallis and Benton County one of them?
Okay, so unfortunately, I don't actually know the answer to that question, but I do know that there are folks here at our office that are working to try to get some answers for folks about that, because we do know that there are some cities and counties in Oregon that have already enacted or ordinances that limit law enforcement, and their chiefs of police who have just sort of voluntarily said that they will or won't do certain things. And then we also have a state sanctuary law which does limit law enforcement's ability to, under our state law, they can't target people simply for their immigration status. So we do have some sort of unique circumstances here in Oregon that are a little different than some of the other states. So I know that folks at our office here are working really hard to try to get that information for people, because I think that it is really important for you to be able to know in your locality what exactly the situation is there, and whether or not they have adopted those policies. So I'm sorry that I don't know that information. The legislature has been really busy since February, so I've been a little bit out of the loop.
And that's all the questions right now.
Okay, cool.
So just thank everybody.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys. I really, really appreciate everyone tuning in now live, and also all of the folks that are going to tune in and watch later, and look forward to meeting you all in Salem.